Hey everyone, it's Amber Spotted Elk at the Paper Owl and welcome to my channel. Today I have 5 Dollar Tree DIYs in store for you. They happen to all be tree DIYs, so I'm really excited about them. They look really high end. Also, I have a giveaway going on for my last Dollar Tree haul, so be sure to check that out. The details are in the description of the video. As always, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really does help my channel. Comment below, let me know which of these projects is your favorite. And if you'd like to be part of the Paper Owl family, subscribe, hit that bell button so you get notified every single time that I upload. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hey everyone! So, we're starting out today with the first tree project we're doing. We're using 3 of these frames. So these are from the Dollar Tree. They're in the shape of a triangle already, but it's kind of like a wide triangle, or I didn't like the shape of it for a tree, and that's what we're going to be making these into today. And so basically, I cut them down at an even sharper angle than what they're at. So they're at like a 45-degree angle right now. And so I was going to use my miter box. Obviously, that only goes to 45. So I cut them down to be these narrower triangles. They are not all perfect, and that's fine. I didn't want them to all be like matching in size necessarily. So if you wanted to, you could absolutely do that. I just kind of eyeballed mine and let them all be a little bit different. I was okay with that. So I'm using some E6000 and hot glue to put these back together. And I also, they had like those little teeth in them, like picture frames do. I did pull all of those out, just because they're not necessary for what we're doing, and it was going to catch on the stuffing I put inside. So this green plaid cloth I actually got from the Dollar Tree. Surprisingly enough, I was really lucky to find it there. So you actually get a decent amount for $1. You could probably get more at a fabric store, but you know, it works. So I glued this down to the fabric, and I put some stuffing from an old pillow that I had in here, just because I didn't want it to be like really flat inside of there, or like no substance inside. So I put enough in that it kind of like pudges out a little bit with the with the oh my goodness, with the stuffing. My gosh. Oh, so I trim it up. I try and make the back look as nice as possible so that it doesn't have like super raw edges or anything. So I fold them over and then lay them down, just because it's possible that these might get seen where I'm putting them, and so I don't want the back to look like super ratchet. So so you can see I'm stuffing it more there, just because I want it to look like there's some stuff in there. Like, I don't want it to look, like I said, super flat. And then that's it. I just kind of wrap this up like a present. And that's it. For that part anyway. So I do take some of the wooden stems from the Dollar Tree. I try and find the ones that are like the most flat, because I do want this to stand by itself. Now you could create a base for it and like drill a hole so that the wooden stem fits in there, or use something smaller if you wanted to. Um, this personally worked out fine for me, so I was happy with that. So I made one in the a red buffalo check and then the gray. Love these. Put a few buttons on them, and they turned out great. Super happy. Love this kind of artistic tree. So for DIY number 2, we are using these shims. I was super happy to find these. So these come 42 in a pack for, I think it's $5. I got them at Lowe's. So you're gonna need essentially 5 for each tree. I used 4 to make a smaller one, and then 1 shim to run down the back. So with the shims, what's a little bit different about them is that they are graded. So one end is thicker, and then it kind of slopes down. So it's not like one uniform measurement in thickness across like a painter's stick would be. But I really liked that for this because I did want kind of that rustic vibe for this. And honestly, in most projects, you're probably not even going to be able to tell that it's on it, that it's graded like that. So for 42 pieces for $5, like, I'll deal with the gradient in it, like, no problem. So I take Minwax, and this is the walnut stain. I love this. I love the dark stain. So I cut those all down, and then I decided to wrap one of the shims in this Dollar Tree ribbon. I really like this. So I do this on a different slat in each of the trees that I do. So I do 3 trees and kind of move the slat around that I cover with ribbon, and I do change the ribbon that I use. So obviously, personal preference. If you wanted to do this, you don't have to. You could use all the same ribbon. You could cover it all in ribbon if you wanted to. Really just what is pleasing to your eye or what works with what you've got going on in your decor. So I really like these. I think they turned out great. Just kind of like a minimalist tree, like nothing crazy. So I'm laying my back shim down there, spacing out. And this I am just using hot glue. These are like super light pieces of wood, so you could absolutely use wood glue or your glue of preference, and that would be totally fine. So you do want a trunk on your tree in order to keep it up on its base. So I'm using this slatted piece from the Dollar Tree, painting it white, kind of giving it snow vibes maybe. And then I do take 4 of the little wooden cubes that are also from the Dollar Tree. They come in like a 36 pack, I believe. And I'm placing those on the bottom just to give this some more height. I didn't want the trunks of the trees to be going through and hitting the table if it wasn't going to be secure. So I wanted to give this piece a little bit of height. You could use like wooden beads, anything to give this a little bit more height. I do think that that helps it a little bit. So I impatiently dry this with my dryer and make sure I've got everything kind of touched up there. And I think I only did 1 coat on this. I didn't need it to be like super thick. And it's a chalk paint. It has good coverage anyway. So I glue on my wooden cubes. And I did put a tiny drop of E6000 and then the hot glue on there just because I do like this. I may keep it around. If so, I want it to have a nice strong hold. So I measure out where I want these to go, and that trunk was just a little too thick, so I sanded her down a little bit. Same with that one. I wanted to make sure that they went down far enough that it was going to be a snug fit. So for those, I just put a little bit of hot glue, stuck them in there, and then I dressed up the front with some greenery that was also from the Dollar Tree. I took apart one of those picks and just reassembled it in the way that I wanted. So I took those 2 pieces, wrapped them in twine to create a good base, and then added the leaves, the berries, and the little cotton piece back on there. When I wrap it in twine, I feel like it just makes it a little bit more secure as a good base for all the rest of the pieces. So that's just my thought. It could probably be done without it, but I like the looks of this much better. And I actually this came on one of those clips so that you could like clip it on. And so I had taken that all apart, as you can see, and I end up putting the clip back on here. So this is just clipped on the front, which I love because now I can reuse this for other pieces if I want, or I can keep it on there if I want. There are just more choices that way, and I like to have choices. So I love having those clips on your greenery pieces. It just makes things, reusable. You can change your mind. I really like it. So I planned on gluing it on there and decided like I've got this clip, I'm going to use it. So there we go. I just clipped it right on. I added a bow and some ribbon and just jizzed it up a little bit, and that was it. It turned out super cute, so easy, didn't take much time, and I like I said, I really like this. It's kind of like minimalist feel and still super cute. So here I'm adding this buffalo check ribbon I got from Michael's actually. But here's the finished project. I love it. You can see I kind of sanded those edges, give it a little bit of a rougher feeling there, and the different ribbons I used on those slats. Super cute. I really like how this turned out. Comment below, let me know which one of these projects once we're finished is your favorite. And on to DIY number 3. We are going to be using these party hats. So, this giant thing of jute twine that was $19 at Hobby Lobby, but I got it with like a 50% coupon, so $9 for that like giant thing of jute twine. Like I'm never gonna have to buy twine again. So for this first one, I don't do anything but take off like all the fixins to the hat and just wrap the twine around. I only hot glue the top and then just wrap around and in the middle and then glue towards the bottom. Like you don't need to hot glue all the way through. I light it with a match to clean up all of those hairs. If you're not comfortable doing this, then don't do it. If you need to have like a glass of water nearby to make yourself feel safer, then absolutely. But it's going to make your twine look so much better, I promise you. So I'm figuring out how I want to dress this thing up. I'm looking at this pipberry. I decided I don't like it. But I finished the rest of my hats. With these, I ended up cutting some of them down and then cutting some of them off to make them a more narrow hat or tree, I guess. And I really liked the look of that more, and it felt a little bit sturdier. So I actually end up going back and fixing my twine one so that it's a little bit skinnier. She was just a little too thick. So I went back and fixed her up somewhat, and then with the rest of these I went with that skinnier look for the trees. I just think it looks a little bit better, a little bit more high end in my opinion. The bigger one, it looked okay, I just wasn't feeling it. So but here are all the ones that I did, and I love these. They turn out so great. I mean, just in love with them. Obviously, you can dress these up as much as you want to, or down, or not at all. So you can see I kind of did some without, some with, and I am just loving that little forest of trees. Number 4, we are going to be using this Thanksgiving box and then those 2 tree cutouts. So I remove the ribbon, I paint this box black with the Waverly ink, and I do paint the front and back and the sides. I don't paint the bottom just because I don't think it's necessary. If you want to, if your heart feels the need to paint that bottom, then you paint that bottom of that box, girl. So you're going to want to paint all the other sides though, because they will show with this tree. It doesn't cover it up all the way. So I'm using my glue stick and I am using that to put my scrap paper on. I'm using this cozy cabin scrap paper pack. I believe that I got it at Michael's last year for pretty inexpensive. I think I paid like $6 for it. And there's like 48 sheets in there, so it's a great deal. So I cut this down as much as I can with my scissors, and then I go back, I kind of clean up my edges with the hot glue, make sure nothing's coming up, and then I take my sanding block and go over to make sure that I get a really clean edge. So if you don't want to use an X-Acto knife or try and get your scissors right up on these weird edges, then use a sanding, piece of sandpaper or a sanding block like this and clean up those edges, and it'll give you just the best edges. I really like this method. So you can see I go and clean up a few pieces with my scissors again. And I did paint the back of these black just because you will see them depending on which side you're going to be looking at. So I make sure all my edges are nice and attached. I don't want anything coming up. I obviously do this to both trees. And now I take my distress ink and just go around the edges there, kind of give this that vintage feel to it. I feel like it just kind of finishes it off a little bit rather than leaving that raw edge of paper. It makes it look a little bit nicer. So I'm using this journaling card, and it's actually from Project Life, which is a name brand, but Dollar Tree was selling it for a little while, and I actually picked this pack up then, which I was super excited about. So again, I distress the edges on this as well, just to make it matching, and kind of go over that, find placement for it. I write out Mary Mail in pencil, and then I just kind of go over and make my lines that I'm going to be filling in. So this is kind of like a faux calligraphy type of writing. So you basically kind of like make it thick on the downstrokes. Anywhere your pencil or your pen would go down, you make those lines thicker, is kind of the idea. So that's what I do here. I fill this all in, and I typically don't like to use my own handwriting because I feel like it doesn't come out very nice and I end up not liking it. This I'm okay with. I usually would like use my Cricut or a stamp or something like that, but I felt the need to freehand, so I did a little bit of freehanding for you guys. I do put some E6000 and some hot glue and glue that on one of the bigger sides of that box. And then I'm going to do the same thing, some E6000 and glue on the other side, glue that side down. And this is going to be a Christmas card holder or a holiday card holder, what have you. I know you can always like string your cards up and stuff like that, but I honestly don't have like a ton of space that I want to string up all the holiday cards I get during the season. So having a nice box to put them in so that they're still kind of on display, but not really, and it still looks nice and put together, that's my jam. So I decide to use this ribbon. You can see it was $16.99 for these 8 pieces of ribbon, but it was on clearance at Michael's for $3. Can you believe that? I picked up a couple of them. So I actually went back there and there were still a few colors left. So, but that is a great 8 spools of ribbon. 8 for $3. Like, and each of them, I think I counted out, does have like 20 or 25 feet, something like that. So it's a lot of ribbon. So definitely a good deal. Keep your eye out for those clearance and sale items. Like I always say, you can definitely find some good things out there. So I loop around my ribbon and I make sure that I've got 2 loops on each side. So you're going to just keep looping it on itself, and that's how you're going to get the double bow on this ribbon. So I do take my twine and tie that in the center to hold that together. If you're using bigger ribbon, you could always use a pipe cleaner or a chenille stem. And so you can see I fold it in half, I take my twine through, and I just tie it in a knot to hold this ribbon in place so that I'm able to make it into a bow easier. You're going to have to secure it somehow. You could glue it too, but I really would use twine or even a small zip tie or thread. I mean, really anything that's going to hold that middle part together, aside from glue, because that just may not turn out well. So I then kind of clean everything up, fluff out my bow a little bit, and then I add a red and twine, like a twine mixed with red coloring on top there, and then a twine bow as well, just to add some layer and some dimension. So now I'm pulling those two loops apart. So those are your two bows. Super simple, super easy. If you ever need a bow tutorial, let me know. I can always do one. Also, Olivia at Olivia's Romantic Home and Ramon's Home, I believe, they make amazing bows as well. So if you ever want to go check them out, they have some great tutorials as well. So I'm just, and again, with any bow, you're really just kind of fluffing things out and making sure it looks how you want it to look. So just keep that in mind, playing with it and making it how you want it to your satisfaction. So I decided it wasn't staying right where I wanted to it, so I added like the tiniest bit of hot glue just to keep those bows in place where I wanted them, and that made all the difference for me. So this was not a wired ribbon, so it doesn't necessarily hold all of the, everything the way you want it to. So a little bit of hot glue did the trick, and I was really happy with that. So I do that to the other side as well, just a tiny bit. You don't want to do too much because you don't want it to be like splooging out the sides and making your bow look bad. So just a tiny bit, and this is what we're going to put at the top of the tree. I wanted to, you could definitely leave it without this if you wanted to, by all means, but I couldn't leave it bare. It didn't seem right. So I put my bow up there, try and finagle it more like I'm gonna change anything. So I've got this red twine here now as well. It's almost like a vintage candy cane stripe. So I put that in the middle and make sure that it is to my liking as far as size, bow size, and tail size, all of that good stuff. Pop some hot glue on there and stick it to my other bow that I just made. So I put that hot glue down and then I tied it a little bit tighter so that the hot glue was going to hold that knot, so that this would not come unknotted, if that makes sense. I put a little hot glue on the tails so that they didn't start to fray. And now I'm looking where I want placement, and then I'm looking at this twine bow that has the long tails, and we are going to use that. So now I'm adding the hot glue to actually stick it to this bow. I wanted to give the other hot glue that I used to keep the knot on there a little extra time to dry, so I just waited a second for that. And I love the way this turned out. I mean, layering is always, in my opinion, gonna make something look good. So now I take just the plain twine, and this is the Dollar Tree twine, this part is. So I take these little jingle bells and I just add it to the bottom of the tails. I do a double knot, and before I do the second knot, I put a little bit of glue there, just a tiny bit, and tie my knot down onto that, so that hot glue is going to hold that knot into place again, so that my bell does not fall off of there, so that my knot does not come undone. All of that kind of stuff. That hot glue and the knots is a great trick. I love doing that. It really helps secure things. So I do that on the other side as well. And this one had like a really thick piece in the twine, so I put a tiny bit of hot glue there and I twist it because it looks like it was like coming untwisted or something. And so it it was looking, she was looking a little tired. So I wanted to tighten that up and then add a bell on the other side as well. And your tails don't have to be like all the way even. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. I just had to yawn. So your tails on this don't have to be all the way even. I kind of like having them a little bit off. I think it adds to a little bit of that rustic vibe going on with this piece. So I just loop the bell on there. As you can see here, I like try and kind of make it similar to the other side as much as I can, but with the twine to lay them down straight and pull on them is just not happening. So I add the other bell on, and again I do the knot, and then I put a little bit of the hot glue and knot the other piece, and then cut off any of the excess. And again, like I said, this just really helps secure your piece. And I really, anytime that you're able to fit this step in is a good idea if you're knotting anything that needs to stay together. So, and again, making sure it's just super tight, staying where I need it to, cutting off the excess, and then we're going to add that to the center of our bow. And that is it for the bow portion of this. And we'll put that obviously at the top of the tree. And like I said, you can go as much or as little as you want to with these pieces. I do end up adding a tiny bit of greenery to the bottom of this as well. It just felt like it was missing just a little something. So, so yeah, I did add a tiny bit, and it was like greenery that was like left over on the side, so I didn't even have to like cut up an extra piece of greenery or anything, which was nice. So, and here we go. I decide I want to play with the bow a little bit. I see if I want to add tails to this, like faux tails. So I glue this extra piece of ribbon and see how my bow is going to look with some faux tails on there, as if it was a bow I had tied together and not with a piece of twine. So I do that. I see how it looks, and I decide that I don't like the way it looks. It's too much, and with the 3 different types of material and the bells, like the extra tails to this are just not necessary. If you like that look, then by all means, I know layering and layering and layering is definitely like a look, but for some reason the tails on this I just was not feeling it. So you can see I try it out here, and it looks all right. I mean, that looked all right. It wasn't horrible. I liked it better without. So just totally personal preference, whatever you like. So I add my final bow on here. I love the long dangly bells. I think they're super cute. And now here I'm looking at it and I'm like, what else do I want to put on here? Does it need something else? Does it look too plain? These are the thoughts that run through my head. So I'm holding this bow here and decide that yes, I am going to put some greenery on here. And like I said, I didn't have to even pull apart a different pick. Like I just had leftover bits that hadn't used from other picks that I pulled apart already. So that was nice. Always good to save your bits and bobs, people. So I touch up the glue. Sorry, I'm like a tiny bit out of frame there, but I touch up the glue and just make sure everything's exactly where I want it placed. And I love those little bells just jingling down there, just living their best life. So there's that little bit of greenery I added on, nothing crazy. And super excited about this piece. Really excited to put it to use this year and just have like a nice cozy spot for all my cards to hang out that's like not too crazy and feel like I have to like put everything on display. So super happy about that. Fifth and final DIY. So there is that like cabin cozy paper that I used. We're using that farm fresh sign. That lemon sign I got from Walmart, honestly, for like 90 cents. Like it was on like super clearance. It's crazy. So I cut out that farm fresh sign from that paper pack. I glue it onto one of the Dollar Tree slats that's cut down, and I had put some popsicle sticks around this for the frame. I had used Waverly's Antique Wax around on the popsicle sticks to give them a little bit of color. And the one of those wooden pieces from the Dollar Tree on here really gave it that nice sturdiness that it needed to attach to that piece inside of the sign. So the next thing I do is I take these trees from one of the ornament packs and I leave two the original size, and then I cut down three in varying lengths. So each one a little bit smaller than the next so that I can have this like tiny little forest of trees. So I had contemplated just like painting these green or staining them, and ultimately I decide that I'm going to use some paper from that paper pack, the same one that I got that Farm Fresh Christmas tree little sign from. So I take the paper, cut around it, and then I'm going to use that same sanding method to get those edges as clean as possible. These were really small and had like really tiny indents there to be using the sanding paper, but we got her done. Like it took a few minutes to do each piece. And not a few minutes, but a few minutes for all of them. A little bit more tedious, but not horrible. I take that same distressing ink I had used before on the Merry Mail sign and go around the edges just to make those not so stark white from where we sanded the paper off. And I love the way this turned out. So I place all my trees where I want them, make sure they're not going to be hitting my sign once it's in there, and I glue them down on not in I don't glue them in the sign right away. I glue them all together first outside of the sign, and then once they're one whole piece, then I put them in the sign. This is just what worked best for me, and my creative process, I guess. So I just put all my trees together, and they're just a nice staggered little family of trees, and I love that. I love the different papers. This paper pack had some great designs in it. I absolutely love scrapbook paper. So put that in my sign. It is have some depth there, which I really like. I mean, I could not believe I got this sign for so cheap at the end of season a little while back, and so glad I'm using it now. It turned out so gorgeous. Look at those trees. Such a great sign, such a good deal. So happy to use it. Again, comment below, let me know which project is your favorite. Here's our final again. So we've got our Merry Mail sign for all those holiday cards. We have our little forest of cone trees here. I absolutely love the way these turned out. I just feel like making more and more of them in any design that I want to do. So I loved all of these tree DIYs. And here's our shim trees, a set of 3. And then that Christmas tree sign again. Again, I love that little family of trees off in the corner just with all the different paper. So please, you guys, let me know which of these projects was your favorite. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and don't forget I'm still doing a haul until November 6th on my Dollar Tree video. Thanks for watching. Happy crafting.